All right, Frank, this is number 98 on your list. It's the Wizard of Oz sequel, Return to Oz. Return to Oz is a 1985 adventure family film directed by Walter Murch and starring Fairuza Balk, Nicol Williamson, Jean Marsh, Piper Laurie, Matt Clark, Emma Ridley, and a fairly large cast of puppeteers for all of the various puppet characters that they have. In Return to Oz, Dorothy longs to return to the magical city of Oz, but when she finally gets the chance, Oz turns out to have been taken over by the Gnome King and an entity known as Mombi, and Dorothy has to try and free the people of Oz from their grip. Your thoughts on Return to Oz are? This is f***ing great, Mr. at Schuster Films. Don't roll your eyes at me. Watch this and f***ing appreciate how dark Disney was willing to go to do a great Wizard of Oz flick. I hope you already seen this. I have not. This is my first time seeing it. I've heard about this film a lot growing up. You know, a lot of people that I know have seen it, but I just never got around to it. It was one of those ones that was always kind of floating out there somewhere. And it was like, oh, have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen this? And it's like, no, I've never seen it. You know, I just never got around to it. So thanks for putting it on the list. Here we go, you know. And I will say, like, I have to agree with you. It's pretty amazing. Like, one of my notes literally was the old standby, Disney would never make this today. And they wouldn't, because it is dark. It's a much darker retelling of, or not retelling, but it's a much darker sequel to that original film that was made back in the 30s than I think most people probably would have expected. I think that there is, you know, people kind of look at the original Wizard of Oz and, you know, they kind of feel like that it's this like bright, happy thing in their memory. And then when you do watch it, there is some like darkness to it. There is like dark elements to it. But this one definitely like it just goes out of the gate with it. I mean, it does not hold back. Walter Murch goes hard with this, especially with the electroshock therapy. I mean, seeing electroshock therapy in what you perceive as like a kid's film is kind of insane. That kind of blew my mind. And I was like, I mean, he does a good job of incorporating it in a way where like you totally understand why it's in the story. But at the same time, it's like for a movie that's ostensibly PG, it's like, wow, you're really going dark on this one. I looked this up and I found it interesting that this is Walter Murch's only feature film directing credit. He also has one directing credit for an episode of the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series, but those are his only two total directing credits, with this one being his only feature film credit. Fairuza Balk in this film as a youngster, I mean, she probably was 8 to 10 years old, you know, when she made this, is just absolutely amazing. She's so expressive, and you can just see the talent from a very young age. The story is kind of weird, but I guess it's an Oz movie, so it's kind of understandable that it's weird. But the one thing that I did really like about it was the production design and the set design. I thought all of that was really interesting, except for the Wheelers. The Wheelers were something that was like, this is like unsettling. I'm like unsettled by this. It was just strange, and I just didn't like it. Didn't like the Wheelers. One thing that I thought was also kind of weird to me while I was watching this was I felt like, even though there is the connections to that first Wizard of Oz movie, this one definitely feels distanced from that, because the connections are very kind of thin. You know, it's like, yes, you have Dorothy, you have Toto. She lives in Kansas. She goes to a fabled place called Oz, but it's like the Oz that she returns to is so different than the one in the original film that it does. And also, like, she's younger, you know, it's like Judy Garland was playing what was probably like a preteen or teen, and Fairuza Balk is probably like 8 to 10 years old. So it's like she's younger than Dorothy would have been in the original movie. And then she goes to Oz, and Oz is like, again, it's a very different place. And it's just like, there's a little bit of a disconnect there where it feels like this is less of a sequel and more of a film that was maybe inspired by, you know, the original Wizard of Oz, but like is its own thing, even though it's totally not. It's 100% a sequel. As far as Return to Oz goes, would I recommend it? Yeah, it was really interesting. Definitely one of the certainly one of the darkest Disney films that I've seen. I have since watched The Black Cauldron as well, which is kind of like notorious for being like a darker Disney film. And I have to say that like, I like the fact that in the 80s, they in the 70s and 80s, they were willing to go that way a little bit with things. It's like, now it's just, they feel like so sugary sweet, you know, that's like, I'm not trying to make this into a, you know, let's harp on Disney thing, but it just feels like they took more chances back then. And, you know, obviously not all those were successful. The Black Cauldron was kind of like a notorious flop, but it's good to see that stuff every once in a while, you know, to see the chances that they took. So again, would I recommend Return to Oz? Yes, absolutely. It was a very interesting movie, and I did genuinely enjoy it. Up next on your list is number 99. Wow, 99. It's almost done. It's another Tony Scott film. It's Revenge. All right, Frank, and anybody else who's watching, that's it for this one. You can like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I will see you in the next one.